Welcome back to Simply Satisfied. I am your host, Greg, and today I am joined by Heather Solomon. Sorry, I don't know why that was a tongue twister, but it just came out. Heather Solomon. She has actually very interesting things to talk about today, but the biggest thing I want to talk about, not really want to talk about, I'm excited to talk about, is the fact that her whole life has been lesson after lesson after lesson. She calls it her big classroom. And actually, we have very similar stories, not in the things that happened, but the way we're sharing it. She's got a podcast. I have a podcast. It's very interesting stuff. And with that, welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited. I'm excited for today. This is going to be fun.
I know. I'm excited too. I've been waiting for this one actually. So, yes, we had some delay in scheduling, but I've been waiting for this one. So, before we dive into the things that I mentioned, really, I want to know why you say your life has been one big classroom.
You know, I I think everybody's life is a classroom. I think we are all learning things as we go, but I think some of us take those lessons and decide to grow from them a little bit more than others, or that they decide that they're going to change the trajectory. I think I said that right, of their life. So I feel like where I started, it could have been such a different ending for me. You know what I mean? I look at, I didn't have a lot of different role models that most people might have. And so going into my life and knowing what I wanted my life to look like in the end, I had to figure that out on my own. So I had to either dive into, well, there wasn't podcasts when I was much younger, but there was talk radio and there was books and stuff like that. And so I dove into them at a very young age. I mean, 20, 21 years old, I'm driving around listening to Dr. Laura Schlesinger. And I don't know if you've heard of her or not,
I have not. No.
but I'll tell you, she is a relationship, marriage, and child like expert. And she had a talk show, and she still does. She still has a talk show. So I still listen to her. But I just knew that if I wanted my life to look the way I wanted it to, I needed to figure it out. So I had to go to school. I had to figure out what it was going to take to build the life that I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And you said that you had a start and you didn't know if you wanted that to be your end, right?
Yeah.
What was the start? Where do you think your life started?
Well, I'm the result of a teenage pregnancy.
Okay.
So you ever wonder what that looks like? This is it. So, I was not planned. Um, and, when I was born, my dad decided that that was not his journey. So he left. So I grew up without a dad. So, I mean, I had people step in. My mom married when I was 5, and he was, so here's where he was a complete jackass. And so he adopted me, and he stuck around until I was about 10 or 11. They divorced when I was 10 or 11. And then he divorced me too. And so he wanted nothing to do with me, even though I was adopted. So um, then I met my biological dad, who is now part of my life. But it's just, I didn't want that going forward. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want that for any other part of my life or to give that to anybody else. So I had to choose better. And it's not that I always did. Trust me, I did not always choose better when it came to men, but ultimately I chose really well. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And we were able to build a good life together.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
so you got that start,
Mhm.
and then what happened?
Well, so we moved a lot when I was young. My mom, was always kind of looking for love. She's like a romantic at heart, and she just really is. And I mean, she read all the books, the Danielle Steele novels, like all the stuff. And I do believe that she believed in that fairy tale ending. And so we moved, and we also moved with her jobs too. So I ended up, when I counted them all out, I was in like 6 or 7 different grade schools over the course of, yeah. So I mean, I was always the new girl. I was always had to show up that way.
Yeah.
So along the way, I didn't really form a lot of really good relationships either. So that was hard for me. I didn't know how to do that. And so when I was 17, just there was a lot. I never found school very valuable, which, if you're listening, it is like children out there go to school, graduate. But we didn't have a lot. So we didn't have a lot of money. And so my mom never got support or anything like that from either my biological dad or from my adopted dad. So she worked hard. She worked really hard and she did really well ultimately, but that was after I left. And so because we didn't have a lot, I just really didn't understand that college was even an option for me because I didn't know that you could get grants and loans and all that kind of stuff. So I just really didn't try. I worked probably 30 plus 40 hours a week in high school. That was before the labor laws they have now.
Yeah.
And so I worked, I had to help put groceries on the table and all that kind of stuff. So I had a little bit of a different childhood than a lot of people do today, or even a lot of people ever did. Some people have had it worse. Some people have it better. Everybody's journey is a little different. And so, because I didn't do well in high school, college definitely was not an option for me. And so I went into the Navy when I was 17. So I knew I was either going into a canning factory or the Navy. Either way, my future held steel toed boots. So I was like, pick the one that's going to let you travel. And so with all of that, I kind of escaped and, Wisconsin, which I never actually left before I went in the Navy. And that was my first plane ride and all the things was to boot camp. So but it gave me a chance to just see different things too, you know. So
Yeah.
that was my next step.
So you left Wisconsin,
Hmm.
which, I've been to Wisconsin many a times. Not a lot of people leave.
I know.
It seems like everyone I meet, they're like, "Yep, born and raised right here in this town," and I'm like, "Huh,
It is a great state, and there's good people, and all the like, my whole family except my brother. My brother and I both left, but my brother, a lot of people stay, but it is a great state. I'm never going to diss Wisconsin. I absolutely love it, and it's beautiful, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
But I needed to go uh, to see what else there was out there for me.
yeah." And so, what'd you learn that was out there?
Oh, a whole world. Well, so I was like, wow, things are different. There was different kinds of people, and because I come from a real small town in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so it was all just cheese and hometown bars.
Yep, that was it. Cheese, hometown bars, and on Sundays, nobody went to the bars. At least they didn't park out front. They parked in the back, so nobody could
Yeah,
see that they were sinning on Sunday. So, um, and my mom was always like, my mom is just like, if you say I can't do this, then I'm gonna do it, right? So
hmm,
it was a very, very religious town we were from, and she would mow her lawn the first thing Sunday morning, when nobody's supposed to work and all that kind of stuff, and she's out there at like 7 in the morning because
yeah,
she was going to make a point. And I definitely got some of that from her. I definitely have that streak, but when I went in the military, I had to be really. There was no calling in sick. There was no excuses. There was, you showed up. The military I was in. I mean, I went into the Navy when I was 17 in 1989. Okay, and so I'm 53, and it was a whole different military then,
hmm,
and it was a lot more strict. It was a lot more. There was no getting out. Okay, there was no going. I just don't want to be here anymore, or I've got X, Y, or Z. So then I got sent off to Desert Storm, and that was right before it actually turned to Desert Storm. It was Desert Shield. So I went to that, and then that was a whole other eye-opening experience. Seeing different parts of the world, which I loved, but also seeing some parts of the world that were really, really not woman friendly and that type of thing. We were in Egypt, and at that time, it was not a good place to be a woman.
yeah,
And I don't know if it's changed much, but so I got to experience a lot of things. And it made me realize that there was so much more out there to experience and that I really could do probably anything I wanted to do at that point.
yeah. In all these experiences, did you get to enjoy them?
Yeah, I had a blast. I was 19 and I was in places and overseas that didn't have a drinking age. And like, I was having a blast. Trust me, I made incredible friends. I got to meet all kinds of people from different walks of life that were so different from me that I'd never experienced before, and absolutely fell in love with it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I had a really good time. I had a blast in the Navy. I mean, I really liked that little 4 year journey of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So 4 years in the Navy. Okay. And then your story continues where?
Then I get out of the Navy and I come home and I meet my husband shortly after.
In Wisconsin?
Mhm.
Okay.
At a wedding. So we were at a wedding. And so we met shortly after that. And I was the bartender and he was in the wedding. And that's where we met.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay.
I was the only
And
sober girl there. So I was,
well, that's probably a good way to meet.
yeah, it wasn't bad. So
Yeah.
it was fun. It was a good, actually the first thing he ever said to me, because it was so unique. He was standing at the bar with one of the other guy's moms. And at the time, there were these videos that were really popular. They were like buns of steel, abs of steel, arms of steel. They were workout videos. And so they were talking about whether or not my husband had buns of steel or not. And he said, well, we need an impartial judge. So he looked at me and he said, here, feel my butt. And so I felt his butt and then I married him. So
Wow.
it worked. Good pickup.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the greatest pickup line I've ever heard.
Right? Yeah, it worked. Who would have known?
Was that staged?
No, that's the funny part is they were just, I can't see him staging. Like I've known him for so long now, there's no way he staged that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have to try that.
Give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, you know.
Well, wait, let me rephrase. You're in the right company, yeah.
Yeah. So you met your husband, right?
Mhm.
And fast forward to where you're at now. Okay. What is the big thing now that really gets you out of bed in the morning?
You know, I have a really, really good marriage. I have the best marriage that I know of out there. But it has been hard and it has been work and it didn't come easy. And we have gone through all the things, we've gone through the diapers and we've gone through the tantrums and we've gone through us growing at different phases too. Like one of us maybe is growing at a different pace sometimes than the other person. And so that made us really have to learn how to communicate. And that changes. Like that changes. And people change. People change all the time. And so being able to make sure that we're at least changing together or we're accepting of that change is so crucial. You know what I mean? Because one of the big things that was important to both of us is that I stayed home with the kids. And so, during that time, I it's not an easy job. I'll just put that out there for anybody who thinks that a stay-at-home mom is sitting at home watching soap operas and eating bonbons. They are absolutely out of their mind, and I kill for them to try it for 2 months and tell me how easy it is. So it was work, and then at one, and we had to learn how to navigate that. Like, I remember, early on, he would come home. He had Friday afternoons off because he chose to have Friday afternoons off so he could go golf or just have that time for himself. And I remember being like, I don't get an afternoon. Why don't I get an afternoon? You know? And but he was good at that point. Like there's times where we've been better at communicating. One of us has been better than the other. And I just remember being like, no, I get every other Friday afternoon and you get the other one. And I just remember him being like, I need this time for me. If you need it, get a sitter. And for me, because I was the stay-at-home mom, it never dawned on me that I could ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, learning to ask for help. I mean, my husband has his own business. He has an office manager. He has several people that work in the office. He has 2 or 3 nurses. He has a team that's behind him. He doesn't schedule his own appointments. He doesn't file his own insurance. He doesn't do any of that. And for some reason, so many times, especially stay-at-home moms, feel that we have to do it all. When he has a team to make it work, sometimes it's okay for us to have a team to make it work too. And I think that was a really big lesson I had to learn that he actually taught me early on. And so it just kept evolving. So, sometimes we'd hit hit a post in the road, and all of a sudden we'd have to go like, how do we get around this? But we were always so determined to do it, and a thing that was really important for both of us was that we didn't preach a lifestyle to our children. We showed them a lifestyle. And it's very important to me, because of listening to Dr. Laura when I was 21, was that my husband came before my children. Because without him and I, there is no marriage. There is no Christmas morning. There is no, birthday celebration. There is, but there might be two of them. There might be, and so we knew that we had to always come first before them so that they could have us. And now my son is 31 years old and he's married, and his wife is fantastic, and so, but he got to see what that looks like. And we have, as we're raising these kids, we have this choice as to what that looks like. Do we show them that we're partners and that we're in it for life and that we're the best friends and lovers all at the same time, right? Like, they're not watching that, but they know it. Like, we're hugging, we're kissing, we're intimate just daily. Or do they see that we're just partners in this agreement to be their parents? And then, you know what I mean? Because they get to view marriage as to what it is by what they see. And so we knew we needed to model, not just preach.
Yeah. And I agree with that stance. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that would disagree.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I know there are. People are like, no, my children come first. And I'm like, then what happens when they leave? Then you're standing there staring at this man that you don't know. And also, one day when your daughter is in a marriage and she's not happy and she's not there, she doesn't have that like wonderful love affair, you can look at yourself and go, oh, well, that's what I showed her. I'm like, we are teaching them how to be happy after us, right? Like, after the children. And the children always leave. They always leave, So, and they're supposed to, but what do they leave with? You know what I mean? And I wanted them to leave knowing that a happily ever after was out there.
Yeah. And it's a tough perspective to look at for a lot of people, because they're like, oh, well, like, my children would always be there. Like, I need to put them first. But, I spent years in the fitness world, and I asked people the same question. They're like, I want to be able to keep up with my kids or keep up with my grandkids. I'm like, okay, like, hypothetically speaking, what if they weren't there? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what's your reason if you didn't have them? And so, that's why I agree with it. I agree that, your relationship with yourself comes first and foremost, and then your relationship with your lover, your partner, your best friend, whoever that teammate is right there, and then the children.
Yeah. Yeah. And I honestly, I think that's the healthiest thing. I think they need to see how to navigate life. They need to know that you can put yourself first. They need to know that it's okay. That's not selfish. You're literally being, when you're the better version of yourself, you can be better for other people. When you're stressed out and you're tapped out and you're mad or you're feeling taken advantage of or all of those things and feeling resentful, that passes on. Whether people know they're doing it or not, you can only hide so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what led you to starting your podcast?
So I always wanted to write a book for years and years and years. My brother and I were always going to write a book, and the title of it was called What Not to Do. Okay. Because we figured everything we learned in our life, we've learned a lot of stuff of what we didn't want. So we want this? Well, no. So what not to do, right? Well, then I tried writing the book, and then I found I'm not a very good writer. And so I was like, how do I put this chapter here? And it just wasn't working for me. And so I didn't know how to get my message out there. And so I have a really good friend, and she has a podcast, and we were talking about something one day, and she's like, come over, I need you to be on my podcast right now, because it was something about marriage, and she wanted me to talk about it. So I jumped on hers, and she said, you need a podcast. and I didn't know how to start. And, you know, I don't know, it was 2 years later, and I kept thinking, I have something to say. People can tune in or they can just hit next. They don't like what I have to say. They don't have to listen. That's the beauty of it. Um, but I had people so many times asking me, what are my biggest tips on marriage? What is this? What is that? And people actually cared when I talked. Like I felt like I was actually giving value. And I just finally decided that it was time for me to take all of my lessons, some of my scars, some of my beautiful moments, all of it, and just put it out there so that maybe someone um, wouldn't have to take the same detour here or there, that maybe they could skip a chapter, that, whatever it is. Or maybe when they got to it, they could go, oh, I remember what she said about this. And so I actually ended up going to a women's convention and sat next to a woman who coaches other people how to start podcasts. So I was like, well, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what it is. And so I hired her. She taught me how to do it. And here I am. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, is that what you do full time?
No, I actually have a health and wellness company that I run from home. It's a company called Arbonne. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it or not.
That sounds familiar, actually.
It's been around for 46 years. It's a network marketing company. I've been with it for 12 years. So I know some
Okay.
people with that, but the company's been around for 46 years. It's pretty legitimate.
I was just about to ask if you started it when you were 7, but
No, I started it when I was 42. So I started almost 12 years ago. So it's been great, but and that company right there, they're a health and wellness company. They're actually a self-development company disguised as a health and wellness company because they really promote self-development. And before I started that company, I thought the only self-development out there was like, yeah, mother, child of an alcoholic, which, my mom's first husband was, all that kind of stuff. But that's what I thought self-development was. Like, I didn't realize like that it's not necessarily about trauma, that it's really about like figuring out how you can grow, how you can treat other people better, like all the things. It's helped me so much be a better mom, a better wife, a better friend, a better daughter, all of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've
So
been
that's
doing that.
the whole time. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been doing that for almost 12 years. You run a podcast, right? And all of this has led to sharing a message, sharing what you have to say, your experiences, your knowledge, and all this other stuff. What, if you could sum it all up, like your podcast, your experiences, and, everything that comes together today, right? What is your main message to people who maybe are in traumatic experiences or having traumatic or have gone through traumatic experiences, maybe are feeling stuck, maybe are looking to change the way they look or the way they feel, or what is your message culminating from everything you've done?
I'd say that message would be, it doesn't define you. Whatever your trauma is, whatever your story is right now, does not define you, and that you get to create your future. Like, you actually get to figure out what that looks like. Nobody gets to decide that for you. And, I think too many people are holding on to a lot of victim, which is completely, I see it. Like, I do. Like, it's honorable. Like, I understand why people hold on to things, but I think a lot of people don't know that there's a choice to get out of it. And that's what I want people to understand, is that they get to choose where they go in life and who they end up being. And it starts with them.
Yeah. Is that what you want people to take away when they hear your story?
Yeah. Yeah. I want, like, you can be anywhere you want to be. Like, you can be anybody you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. I never thought in a million years that when I was young and I was going through a lot of things, that I would someday, have my happily ever after, that my kids would be super, just fantastic human beings that are successful and happy. And I never thought that I could be married and happy forever, but I also never thought that I would have a voice big enough to make an impact anywhere. You know what I mean? I think I played small for so many years, and that didn't serve me, and it didn't serve anybody else.
Yeah. And so you stopped playing small.
I stopped playing small. Yes, I stopped playing small because my kids needed to see me grow. My kids needed to see me push for things, even while I was telling them that they could do anything they put their mind to. They needed to see me do that too. And in my job, I get to earn trips. I get to promote in the company. I get to help other people, promote or start a business. I get to help them see more out of themselves too. And then with the podcast, I've really put myself out there. And, you know, and that's okay because the people who know me and love me know me and love me. And I think so many people are so afraid of the people that they don't know having an opinion of them, and those opinions don't matter. And so, I think all of it together has been it's been a great ride. And now I look at this and I'm like, okay, so I know my 80-year-old self one day is gonna be like, oh, you think you knew it all, but you didn't know anything yet. But I want to keep growing. I want to keep going for things and goals and watching myself rise and watching my husband rise. And I want to keep having a voice that's meant to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in all your growth and all your change, your experiences, your lessons, um, mistakes made, what do you think in your perspective, in your opinion, what do you see most people make the biggest mistake they make in trying to change themselves?
I think they wait for someone else to show up for them. I think if somebody's not happy in their marriage, they wait for their husband to show up and make them happy. I think that if I just think people are always waiting for someone else to do the work for them. I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if, I'll be happy then. You know what I mean? When actually today could be the first day that you're happy. You don't have to wait for any circumstance. You don't have to wait to be a certain size before you're going to be happy. You don't have to wait to be a certain age or have a certain degree or have the certain man or have the certain car or the certain house. Like all the things can happen today. Those will all just complement your life as you go. But if you're not happy now, you'll never be happy when those things come either, because they'll just be another expectation.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
really glad you pointed out the happiness. And, a lot of people say that I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if this happens, or when I get this thing, or whatever it is. It's actually, that was the first podcast episode I ever did, was about exactly that.
Ah, really?
Yeah. How dangerous chasing happiness can be.
It's,
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the big thing that I want to ask you is, how do you help people move past that?
you know, that's a really good question. People have to want to move past that first, and people have to own accountability. Like people have to own their shit. You know what I mean? Like people have to just be able to be vulnerable and honestly look at themselves and go, I can be better than this. Or understand where they're not showing up or how they might be the problem. Right. And so I think that's the very first step in anything, is just that huge accountability factor.
Okay. And so when you get somebody, let's walk through this process, because a lot of people struggle with this. I know I struggled with it for a long time, where I was in the mindset of lack.
Mm-hmm.
It was always more, more, more. So it was always like, oh, I'll be happy when I get this result or when I get this outcome and whatever else. But so you get somebody to take responsibility, okay? But sometimes taking responsibility leads to more anxiety or stress or depression, because now you're like, oh, okay, now I see where all my mistakes are coming from. I'm taking responsibility for them, but now I have too much. Now I have too much on my plate. Now I have, all this going on. What's the next step?
I think people have to be able to take bite-sized nuggets off. Like I don't think Rome wasn't built in a day. As much as I hate that saying, you're
Whoa, why do you hate that saying?
I don't know, because it's so common. Like everybody's always like, Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm like, I know, but it is a good statement in this part because you can't do it all at once. And I think that people want instant gratification. They want everything to be fixed right now. Everybody's so now. If my internet didn't show up right away, they'd be like, ah, if it didn't come in 5 seconds, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't handle it. Right. So we have such a now society. And so people have to, one, be patient with themselves, and they have to forgive themselves. And I think that people need to accept that this is a journey, and they have to have fun in it. Like, people forgot how to have fun somewhere along the way, and they're always ready for the outcome, but they're never like enjoying the actual journey of it. And so when you like enjoy the fact that you just discovered that you might be a shit show, or that you might have an issue that you didn't really recognize before and that you're projecting it, right? Like, or that you've been waiting for happiness to show up for you instead of you creating it. Like, honor that. Like, I think people aren't doing little tiny micro steps and enjoying each one and then celebrating each one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Instead of being like, oh my gosh, this is all too overwhelming, be like, wow, you just kind of noticed this. Like, that's pretty cool. You
Yeah.
know? So yeah, it's the micro things along the way that are going to get you there. Too many people want to be there right now, and you can't be.
Did you ever have a moment in your life where you struggled from this?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, it's so funny because I'm 53, so I've had more time on the earth than you or my
I
children or
still don't believe that you're 53, by the way, but
people don't lie about that. That's not the thing. I love my age though. I
Okay.
absolutely love my age, and I'll tell anybody, because I think it's silly people don't like their age. That's one number you can't control. You can
Yeah.
control your cholesterol, you can control your weight, you can control a lot of other things, but you can't control your age. I always thought my grandmother died at the age of 32 before I ever got to meet her, because I wasn't born. My mom was only 7. And I always would have loved to have met her. And I always thought, gosh, if she ever heard me bitching about my age, she would have killed to see her kids grow up. She'd have
Yeah.
killed to see 33. So I'm like, I think that you need to celebrate your age instead of hide it or play it down. I'm like, it's all going good. So I
Yeah.
like that part. What was the question?
Did you ever struggle from the instant gratification?
Yeah. So, I am I was so into being in a perfectionist mode for so many years. And so I liked how it looked, essentially more outward in, that everything looked good. Even though I was stressed out, even though I was stressing my kids out, my husband was stressed out, like everything had to be perfect, everything had to look a certain way. And so for me to recover from that, first of all, I had to recognize that. Like, perfection isn't pretty, and it's always at a price. You will always pay a price for perfectionism. And honestly, they're not fun people to hang out with. So it's like, if I have to go out to dinner with you, and the only reason I'm going out to dinner with you now is so that you can have something for your Instagram story, like, I don't want to be part of that, right? And so that's the outward looking in. And even though I didn't have Instagram or any social media when my children were little, thank God, but I look at that and I think I still was very concerned about what the world saw. And if somebody stopped over, the house had to be perfect. Who lives in a perfect house? My gosh. If you looked around my office right now, you would die. It is a disaster. It looks okay right here.
Yeah.
But so for me, perfectionism was a very hard thing, that I had to overcome, but I had to recognize it in myself first. And I had to recognize what it was doing to the people around me because of my desire to be perfect. You know what I mean? And I think that that's one thing people don't realize, is that what it's doing to everybody else around you is a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. And what if I would have never figured that out? My daughter would have that right now. My son could have that right now. And then I'd be looking at him going, your house doesn't need to be perfect. Like, where are you coming from? And so there was a lot of work on that one I had to do. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Now, and I love talking about fine lines and balance. Um, where is the fine line? What do you think the fine line between perfectionism and high achievement is?
I think perfectionism is the expectation of something unattainable. And so, and I also think it's the expectation of more so of what other people think. Do you know what I mean? I do think a lot of perfectionists are very concerned as to how they appear. And not all, I'm not saying all, but I do find like how successful they are. And maybe it's not to the outward, but maybe that's to their parents. Maybe there's something there that they feel that they have to live to a certain standard of things to them so that they try to stand up and be perfect to them. Or, for me, it was to have that was my job, right? So I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had to have the perfect house, the perfect kids, like all the routine, all the stuff. I had to look a certain way. I think the fine line in that is understanding what's realistic, and understanding too that really nobody gives a shit what your life looks like except you, and the people that are living in your home. So I had to release that and just be okay to show up in public, not looking 100%, or be okay to, have a failure be public. You know what I mean? Something like that. Like, and what I found was people are more drawn to that than they are to perfectionism. People are more drawn to someone who is real and authentic and somebody who they can relate with versus someone that they feel like they can never achieve that level. You know what I mean? So if somebody stops over at my house, I might apologize that it's not perfect, but you know what? I'm also like, it's very lived in, you know? So, or I'm okay saying that I missed a goal, or I missed this, or I messed up. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to not have it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I ask that, and you talk about like parents passing on to their children and everything, I have a very, very young son, um, but I come home now, right? And I had very perfectionistic tendencies for a long time. And then I learned where a lot of them came from. And like the big thing is cleaning the house or like having a house that is just a total mess, right? My parents' house could be on an episode of Hoarders. Maybe not as drastic as some of those on there, but I mean, there are parts of the house that I'm like, holy cow, like when was the last time you guys saw the floor?
Oh yeah.
But when people come over, the week before is like World War III. We got to clean. We got to find space for all this stuff. We got to, make it look like we are got our stuff together. And I'm like, okay, like, why don't we just do this all the time? And then when I fell really deep into personal development and, growth, and I went through a period of life where I lived like a robot. So I was very habitual. I was very systematic. Then I learned the balance in that. But I learned, one of the biggest thing I learned was if you have a system for all of your things, and everything has a place and everything has a purpose in your space, you don't have to clean as much. Right. And so the reason I ask about that fine line is like, okay, high achievers, some of them live minimalistically so that they don't have to worry about cleaning. They don't have to worry about organization because everything has a spot. Everything just goes back to where it was. Right. So that fine line, like you have people that wait for the last moment. And I was a procrastinator in college and in high school. I would wait for the last moment thinking, oh, I'll be wiser. No, no, no. I was trying to make everything perfect. Then I wait for the last moment and bust out a paper in like 3 hours. And everyone was like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I have no idea. But if I had written and studied all the time, people would be like, oh, you're so dedicated. And that's, one of them is a perfectionist, a procrastinating perfectionist, and one of them is a high achiever, dedicated student, And it's a weird line. Like everything has a really weird gray zone. And that leads me to my next question is what is the fine line between living in the past or not living in the past, reflecting on your past and moving towards your future?
Well, I guess it depends on what your past looks like for you. Some people love their childhood and love all the things that have ever happened to them. And they're like, that was great. I'd like to emulate that again with my future. So I guess it's where if you're going and looking at your past and it's holding you stuck or it's holding you still, I think that's when you have to realize that you can change your story. And that's when you have to go, my past is my past and I can't do anything about that. I can't do anything to change 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? And so it's like you can look at it and choose to learn from it and try to progress and make things better. But sitting in it is like sitting in a toxic brew, right? Like it's just sitting in your own filth of ick because you're never going to be happy there. So I feel like if more people could look at it as, we can't help the things that happen to us, but we can help what happens going forward. And so the one thing we have control on is the things that are ahead of us, not behind us. And so if people could let that go a little bit and and give themselves grace and forgiveness, even if you need to forgive somebody else, that's for you, not for them. Right. And so whatever you have to do to move yourself forward, because the longer you stay right here, dwelling on the things that happen behind you, the longer you're going to stay right there. That's not serving you. So if it's not serving you, it's time to pick up your crap and get moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, flip side,
Mm-hmm.
kind of flip the question on you a little bit because this is actually something that haunted me for a while. Is I was a person who didn't dwell on the past at all.
I didn't either.
And then, the famous saying, we're gonna, we brought up Rome wasn't built in a day, but history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And I didn't dwell on the past at all. And a lot of the things that I was looking, people would look at, and I look back at now and I'm like, okay, people did try to help me. Right. But I was like, oh, it's whatever. You just move forward. You move forward. You move forward. I became super ambitious, but I didn't reflect at all, like on mistakes or lessons or anything. How dangerous is that?
That is dangerous. It can be dangerous too. Oops, you broke
No,
up. What
go
did you
ahead.
say? Oh, okay. I think that can be. So I've done it both ways. Okay. There's a lot of stuff I've had especially in my childhood. Okay. That I used to get annoyed when somebody would tell me that they had trauma and that it held them back. And that was a me issue. That was me like not looking at things that happened when I was a kid, right? And so I'd be like, why are you looking at that? It's not serving you. You just need to move past that. Just bulldoze, right? But that was just a lot of cover up. And I still think no matter what, you still have to look at whatever happened to you and recognize that whatever did happen to you was not one, your fault. And like two, that you can move past all the things. So I've done it both where I've like completely ignored it. And when like, if I just ignore it, it'll go away. I'll just move forward. And I was able to progress, but then little things would like sneak out. Right. So like my temper all of a sudden, I would look at things and I would just go from 0 to 100 really quick. And I don't know that I would have learned all this if I wouldn't have started working on myself so diligently and really tried to figure out like why do these things happen for me. And so I do think that recognizing the things that have caused any angst in your life or caused you to hesitate or caused anything that's not positive, I think that you should look at it, recognize it, but then I believe you need to figure out what can I learn from it? And then how can I move forward to make my life better from there? And I'm just such a big believer in just like, I know you can't always leave it behind you, but I think you should find a way to grow from it. You know what I mean? Like what lessons did you learn? But then on the flip side of that, I'm also like I'm a procrastinator like you wouldn't believe. So with all the stuff I had to deal with, I always say I'm really good in chaos. Like I can get so much done in chaos. Like I excel, I thrive in chaos. And I know that that's part of my past, right? So do I want to get rid of that part of it? Probably not because it's really benefiting me too, right? But then again, maybe if I didn't procrastinate so damn much, I wouldn't have to be in chaos. So I don't know that I actually have an answer for that one because I think I just swirl in all of it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
I think that's why you mentioned like not being able to write a book. I've been writing a book. I was going to say trying to write a book, but I've been writing a book for a while now. And I think that's why I'm having some struggles or having some times where I don't want to write is because there's no chaos. I was the guy, when I was in college, or when I was doing my master's degree, which was all writing. It was right before COVID, but it was still all writing. And, people would be like, oh, like, what homework do you have this week? I don't want to distract you. I'm like, oh, I'll just do it Sunday, because it was due Sunday at midnight. They're like, well, what do you have to do? I'm like, I got to write a 25-page paper. And they're like, wait, what? And it'd be like Friday night. We'd be hanging out at a bar. They'd be like, 25 pages? Like, how long have you been working on that? I'm like, I haven't started. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, I'll start at like 4 p.m. on Sunday. And 4 p.m., I'd lock myself in my room. I would DoorDash Taco Bell. And by 8:30, I'd have a 25-page paper typed with resources, with references and everything else. Turn it in. 3 days later, the TA would be like, wow, this is, I'd get an A, and the TA would be like, you're a really good writer. And I'm like, But it was that chaos. It was kind of like that. I need that pressure. And there's a lot of instances in life where now there's no pressure. And it's kind of like, well, what do I do now?
So on that, I have a friend who is very similar to that, and she has wanted to write a book. She actually hired, I don't know if it's a publisher, or she hired somebody, like an agent. And that agent put deadlines on her. Like, she hired them, right? So she's paying for them. And then they put deadlines on her. And all of a sudden, like, I remember she's like, one week she rented a space outside of her house because she's got 2 young kids and a husband. And she's like, I can't be in here because it's due in a week and I don't have time. And she just like pounded it out. And she got that book done.
Yeah.
But she'd been wanting to write the book for some time. So that might hire somebody, put the money down, put your money where your mouth is.
Well, and that's, that I've realized looking back on my past now, like a lot of those things, a lot of the things that not a lot, but some of the things that I was doing well.
Yeah.
Came from societal pressure, whether it was the grade that I was going to get for writing a paper, or I used to care a lot of what people thought of me. I had a vanity metric. I was a personal trainer in a gym, and I cared a lot of how I looked. And now I don't care as much. I still care, because I think everyone should care about how they look and how they feel and everything else, but I don't care what other people think as much. I won't say it's completely gone, but I will go. I prided myself on the fact that for 7 or 8 years, I had never missed more than a week of workouts. And that was when I was like deathly sick with strep throat or something. And now, like, I'll go a whole month and people will be like, dude, you haven't been working out? And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm okay. And they're like, really? Like, this is not.
Yeah. So how did that switch for you? Like, how did you switch that, flip that switch?
Well, so the big thing for me, and, I have lived a life that people would look at and be like, how old are you? And I've had people, like, I tell people about my life. I tell people about half my life, and they're like, seriously? I have a mentor, he's 56, and he tells me that I've lived more life than him 4 times over. And what flipped the switch for me is I went through years and years of work hard, play hard mentality. And the play hard caught up with me. The good habits could not outrun the bad habits. And it caught up with me. And I had to take full responsibility of everything that I had been doing. When you say the biggest thing that people can do right now to change their lives is take full responsibility, I literally was forced into taking full responsibility. And so I had to sit and reflect, because I was that super ambitious person who was like, well, I keep moving forward. I'll keep moving forward. I'll set new goals. I'll do this thing. Like, yes, this event happened, or I lost money or whatever it was, but I can make it back. I can change. I can do all this stuff. But I never sat and looked at what led to that. Right? And so when I started making all these shifts, started making all these changes, I really sat and I looked around and I was like, okay, I'm not that important. And I say that in the most meaningful and meaningless way possible, is that I realized 2 things. I'm not that important, and I am that important. But I had to realize the first one first. Because I put myself on this pedestal. I put myself on this pedestal that I thought everyone was thinking about me. I thought everyone was worried about me. I thought everyone was caring about what I was saying or doing or not doing. And everything became so stressful. So I had to realize that I'm not that important. And then I had to realize, two, that I am that important in the fact of no one was going to care, but no one was also going to change me except for me. And all of this came as a revelation of actually sitting down. And this is why I asked you about the balance between looking back and moving forward. I stopped moving forward. Like I had to get rid of any old goals and any old ambitions and any old aspirations. I was removed of all of the accolades and titles and everything, credibility wise, like all of that went away. And I was asked a very simple question that I didn't know how to answer at the time, which was, who are you? And I started rambling off all these things that I'd done. They're like, no. That's like what you've done.
Yeah.
The titles you've gained, what this, and this was a very spiritual person. He's not like a bald wearing a robe monk, but he was a monk, and he was like, that is what your physical body has done on this planet. But what have you done? Who are you mentally? Who are you emotionally? Who are you spiritually? Who are you other than Greg? And I was like, I don't know. So I had to sit and I did a lot of writing. We talked about writing books and everything. I did a lot of writing, more writing than I think I did in all of school combined. So
that's a great story, because I think if you ask 90% of the people out there, who are you? They would tell you what they do. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm Arbonne consultant. I'm a podcaster. Like, they would tell you those things. I think that's, and I find that, like, my daughter was a very competitive gymnast, and when she ended her collegiate career in gymnastics, she had to figure out who she was when she wasn't a gymnast, and that was hard. And so I wish we would teach that in school. Who are
well,
you?
and you said earlier, like, oh yeah, I don't think, I think school is important. And I was like, well,
It is if you want to do certain things in this life, right? But I mean, yeah, I've got a whole bunch of opinions on that too. So if certain careers, yes, you absolutely 100% need that education, but I look at things now and I'm like, so many trades have gone by the wayside because of the fact that they think they need to go to college first. And so we need everybody, you
yeah.
know?
Well,
Yeah.
and that's in that time frame. I've read a lot as well. I've wrote a lot, but I read as a lot, and I read probably over 200 self-help books, self-help, personal development, relationships, spiritual, all this stuff, because I became obsessed with taking responsibility. I became obsessed with human potential and personal development. I got smacked in the face with all the playing hard that caught up with me, and I was like, okay, how can I make sure this never happens again? And so I became obsessed with it, and in all that reading, I was like, okay, why is this not taught when you're 12? Like,
Yeah, these things need to be taught. And I mean, obviously, I like a little bit of self development myself, and that whole wall over there is full of books, and that's just the books that I still have. I think and then I have a ton on Audible because I listen to a lot on Audible.
yeah.
What's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book ever?
You can only have one. You're going to an island.
Oh, man. I can only have one.
Yeah. You can only get one.
That is really tough.
It is hard. There's so many good ones out there, and you learn so many nuggets from each one. But I'm like, if you I mean, maybe you can't sum it down. I don't know. But
I think I would have to go. It's so tough. If I'm on an island, it's very different because I'm going to go with James Allen.
okay. James Allen. Which ones does he write? I'm not good with authors all the time.
So
I just
James
know.
James Allen has two really really good books, but his best one, and it's attributed in a lot of things, is As a Man Thinketh.
I do know that book. See, yeah, I know that book. Yeah, I
Um,
haven't read it, but I bet it's good.
yeah, if I'm on an island, it'd either be that one or it would be Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Ooh. Have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have.
I listen to it on Audible. I listen to it at least once a year on Audible because he's a good storyteller on the Audible. Yeah, but there's good ones.
Yeah, I have 10 or 12 that I rotate every year. And if a book comes around that I need to put in that rotation, then I do that. But I was doing a book a week. I'm not as on top of that recently.
Yeah,
But I still read a lot of books. If I wasn't on an island, the book I would probably keep would be Atomic Habits.
I love that book.
Yeah,
I love that book, and The Slight Edge is one of my favorites too. But I think if I had to really put it, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy,
that's a good one.
that was one of my favorites too.
Yeah, there's so many books. I recently read The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I recently reread Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. There's so
Now what?
many books.
I have all those on my Audible.
There's
The Let
so
the
many good books.
Yeah, there are so many good books, and I think you people should read for pleasure and for both because I went for probably 11 years where I wouldn't read anything unless it was going to make me grow further, right? Then I started getting stunted on it, and I was like, I just don't want to read another one because at some point I was like, they started to sound the same, and so then I went off and I read a couple just for funsies books. And then I was able to go right back and go, this actually didn't sound the same anymore. Like I'm getting, I'm starting to get the messages and I needed to like walk away for a month before I went back and started listening again. But I love fueling myself essentially.
Yeah, and actually that brings up a good question. One of the big things that I've struggled with, and I still do to this day, and a lot of people have struggled with this, and I want to know what you would say to these people if they came to you and they wanted to change. But I read a lot of books, and sometimes I'm in a period right now where I have to stop because, and my mentor has told me this, I'm very easily influenced. When I set my mind to something, right, I will go search out people who have achieved that or people who can talk about those things or whatever else. However, I will start listening to all of these different things and some of them will contradict and it'll make me not act or it'll make me think, one way and then shiny object syndrome takes me another way and it's like, okay, now I'm not living true to myself. I'm playing the imitation game. So, what would be your advice to somebody who is easily influenced, who feels stuck because they have so much influence around them?
I think people need to like really feel sometimes and feel what feels authentic to them because I mean, we have social media, we have people chirping in our ears, we have all podcasts, books, all the things. And I'm a big believer in if you start listening to something and you cannot relate with it, it might not be your book. Or maybe it might not be that time for you. Because I have a lot of books that I started that have incredible messages. But if I start thinking any other way than this could really serve me, then I put it down because it just might not be that time in my life that I need to hear that lesson, you know? But I also think that if you're hearing something and then you're searching for another answer other than what you just heard, there could be some validity to it. You could be not agreeing with it because of whatever may have happened to you in your past. But sometimes you have to look at it and go, am I searching for another reason? Because I just don't want to face that. And so it's like really figuring out what that looks like for you. Is it because of something that happened before that I just don't buy it? Or is it because I just don't want to really look within and understand and recognize that they might be talking about me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. And I've started like before I pick up a book, I will use my trusty friendly personal assistant ChatGPT and I will say without ruining the book, tell me what it's about.
That's a good way to do it.
And it'll give me kind of a rundown. I actually did it with a book, yeah, a couple days ago, and it gave me a rundown, and I was like, okay, like I don't really need to read this book.
No, I do the same thing. I mean, I don't use ChatGPT, but a lot of the books I get are based on whatever I'm in the moment of, right? And so, like, I'm trying to. I know it's around here because I lit my. If you saw my desk, you would hate it. You would related to your mom and dad, because my desk is just bad. But I usually can find stuff. But so I read according to where I feel in that moment. So like right now, I'm in kind of in this process, like with my other business, of just growth and rebuilding and like doing all of that right now. And sometimes that can be super scary. You know what I mean? And so, especially when you've done it once and you're like, oh my God, I got to do it again, you know? And so I have to dig in to go like, well, what's scaring me about that? Like, what is the issue? Because there's something there. There's something I'm avoiding. I think we play small when we're avoiding things. And so I'm reading a book about fear right now, right? Like, what does that look like? And I know I read the book probably 11 years ago. It's sitting on my shelf, but I'm like, I guess maybe you need a recap on that. So I think a lot of times I read according to what I need to know right now. If I need to learn leadership or parenting or whatever that is, I need to focus on those. There was a time I thought vulnerability was just a dirty word and meant weakness. And I remember the moment I realized I needed to learn how to be vulnerable and that it was crucial and strength instead of weakness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I dove into that and Brene Brown and all of those.
Yeah. I get it. I read what I want. I'm wanting to learn or what I'm focused on. Like right now, everything I'm reading is about travel. Because I'm in a period of restarting my life. I have an opportunity. Most people would not think it's an opportunity at all, but I had the opportunity to kill off the old self. We talked about I went through this massive transformation, and that came from spending. And to be fully transparent with you, Heather, spending some time in a correctional facility.
Okay.
And learning that'll wake you up. That'll wake you up. Some people it doesn't wake them up. They just treat it as like a vacation. But there was a lot of people like that in there. But you learn how to live out of a box. You meet people who have been there their whole lives, or my whole life. One of my best mentors in there has been locked up 31 years. And I'm like, that's older than me. That's longer than I've been alive. But they have so much wisdom because all they have time to do is to read, to write, to reflect. Right. And so I went through this period and I have, then I got out. Right. And shiny object syndrome kicked in and I was like, well, maybe I should go back to this. Maybe I should go back to this. Maybe I should go back to that. And my mentor, previous business partner, was like, if you go back to any of that, you won't have grown. He's like, you need to embrace something that you truly love to do. And so I've been saying since I was like 12, my family travels a lot. I'm like, man, if I could figure out how to get paid to travel, that'd be awesome. And then it landed in my lap. Somebody messaged me on Instagram. They're like, hey, I've been doing this since I was 19. I'm 22 now. Like I travel the world, get paid to do it. Do you want me to show you how? And I was like, yeah.
Yes.
So now everything I read, like every blogs, I'm reading about trips. I'm reading about places, I'm reading hacks, watching videos on hacks on how to get cheap flights and everything else.
I need that.
But a lot of it is also, I have another opportunity, which is, and like I said, most people would not see it as an opportunity. I will forever be red marked by society. Well, for a long time, right? And I truly embraced my creative side in there. I had to shut down my analytical side. My analytical side had run my life for so long that my creative side was just like, of my brain was just fried, shut off. And so I started embracing my creative side. I got out and it's like, somebody was like, you should start building a brand. It's something that people can't hold against you if it's positive. And it could lead to a career, So I started researching cameras and cinematography and filmmaking and everything. That's what actually led me to travel. Was I started making travel content because, like I said, my family travels a lot. We were in California, started making content. People were like, wow, this is really good. And I'm like, I'm just filming on my phone, people. But it's weird. If you would have asked me, if I was on a podcast 4 or 5 years ago, talking to myself now, I'd be like, that's not an opportunity, dude. Like, are you kidding me? You can't get a job. You can't do. But it's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. Crazy
stuff. Now, as we start to, I don't even remember what we were talking about that led down that path, but books or something. But as we start to wrap up the show, I want to thank you again, Heather, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sharing your story, sharing your experiences, sharing your lessons, sharing your mistakes. I have a couple more questions for you though. The first one is actually something I've never asked a guest before, but I want to hear it from you is what do you think the biggest mistake you've made in your life is? And what'd you learn from it?
Biggest mistake I made in my life. Oh, I think probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life was covering up who I was to have approval by everybody else. Like just completely faking who I was for many years so that I would be accepted by the people I thought I needed to be accepted by. I mean, yeah. So covering up any part of my real self
Okay.
and that it wasn't good enough.
Yeah. That's a huge one. I think that a lot of people do that. I did that.
Oh yeah, I did for a lot of years. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Covered who I was. Yeah.
now my second question is the theme of the show. I don't know if you know the theme of the show. We might have gone over it. I don't know if I did.
I don't know.
But it's a very important question. It's actually I think you didn't answer it in the show, but I think that you answer it in your podcast sometimes because your podcast
Okay.
is called Listen Up Younger Self. But the question is what is one thing that you wish you knew earlier in life?
I wish I knew that I had full control and full reins of my life and that I didn't have to give up any of the control to anybody else. Like, I think I was always waiting on the knight in shining armor. You know, I think I was waiting on someone to save me when I was a lot younger. Um, and I didn't know that it was within me to save myself, you know, that it was all there. Like, it's almost like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. Like, it's all been within you all this time, you know, just click your red heels and you'll go, you know. So I think honestly, like if I could say anything to my younger self is like as soon as you show up, you can have anything you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned in my life. Yeah. Well, blew me away with that one.
Thanks. This was fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Of
This has
course,
been a
thank you
lot.
for being here. Do you have anything else you want to tell the audience before we end today?
No, I mean I just think it's you know, you can if you want to find me, you can find my podcast at Listen Up Younger Self. Or I'm on Instagram, it's Heather SLMN, you know, but it's always fun when you show up as your most true authentic self and with completely unapologetic uh, because then you really get to own who you are, and I think if more people owned who they were, everybody would just be so much more happy. I do.
Yeah.
I think people would be happier and when they can dive into who they are at the core. So yeah,
Yeah.
start doing
Amazing.
that. Just
Yeah.
start. Yeah.
And for everybody listening, I'm going to put all of Heather's information inside the show notes. So you'll be able to get in contact with her there. Go follow her on Instagram. Go listen to her podcast. Go blow her up because, you know, one day everyone's going to look at Heather and be like, okay, we listened to her when she's just figuring it out, right?
Right. And like I said, someday I'll still be like, oh, you didn't know anything.
Exactly. So everybody listening, go check out Heather. And as always, keep smiling, keep striving, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.